It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in.
To the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release.
That finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
Welcome to the Shield Within.
Welcome, Mark. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm your host, one of your hosts, Marc the Cop, and my esteemed colleague to my right, Dr. David Buchanan.
Good evening.
It's great to have you all on board. Mm-hmm. We have a guest this evening. Mm-hmm. Well, this afternoon, whenever.
Right.
We have Lieutenant Joe Gebhart from the Ohio State Highway Patrol, and we're really super excited to have him here. I say that too much. I need to find a new word track, don't I? We are thrilled.
Yes,
we are more than pumped. We're high-fiving him or whatever else.
Right.
So Joe comes to us, and actually we approached him, right?
Yes, we approached him after... We would like to have a regular rotation of folks from departments in the area, that or elsewhere. We've learned of some departments in other parts of the country that are doing some really exciting things for mental health for their crew. And so we thought, we've got somebody really close here who's an awesome guy, has an incredible reputation of being a great leader for the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And so we knocked on his door, and he immediately said, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. I've known Joe for, good Lord, probably most of my career. I first met him back when I was a reserve officer for the village of Covington, when he was a patrolman, many, many, many moons ago. I just went out and backed him up on a stop there just north of the village. So that was my first time I met the man.
Wow.
And been friends ever since. He's just a great dude. I mean, Joe... you can't say enough good things about him. He represents himself well. He represents his agency extremely well. If more law enforcement leaders were like him, the world would just be just a better place.
Oh, man. Yeah.
A few years ago, he started a Christian men's group, and we'll go over one of the books. It was just like read the chapter, and I think... I don't remember the name of the book. I was doing it for a while, but that's when I was still on the job. And I would go up there on Thursday nights, and it just got to the point to where we were just too busy. I couldn't go anymore. So, unfortunately, the meetings always fell on the Thursdays when I worked.
Right.
But, enjoyed that. He had the leadership ability to do that. And I told him when we ran into him at...
Chess party.
Yeah. That took a lot of leadership, and that had a lot of forethought. And to stand up and do that, it's kind of a precursor into doing officer wellness before officer wellness was a thing. So I thought that was very, very bold, very courageous of him to start something like that. So we're honored to have him here. He will be our guest for the month of November, which the first episode and the second episode would be all him, or the three of us. We had a great evening together. We were kind of hoping to be able to take him to dinner, but as that worked out. So, Mark, you're talking in past tense. Well, yeah. And the reason why is David and I had to come in here and re-record this intro because evidently I didn't know what the fuck I'm doing with my soundboard here. And we lost the first, 5-10 minutes of the program. So Donnie's going to work his magic here. So I don't know if he wants to do some type of wind chimes from this to bring us into current day, kind of like, we're jumping into the future or into the past. Right. But I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yes.
Kind of like, have like the opening to Blackwater, we get the wind chimes.
Right.
And then we roll into our episode with Joe, not Joel. God, Lord. It'd be fun to have Joel on.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't have him up here sometime.
That would be
we were on the it list. That would be fun. But we will join the first half of the episode in progress. So again, this is the Shield Within. If you like us, please go to our Facebook page. Hit us a like there. If you're listening to us on whatever podcast platform you are, like and please subscribe When you subscribe, whenever I put a new episode up, that will immediately pop into your feed. Also, it helps us on the business end. Also, listening to The Shield Within may trigger something inside you. And if that happens, please reach out to your therapist if you don't have one. Are you still taking clients?
Still am.
David's still taking clients. If you would like to work with him, he's at lessonslearnedcoaching.com, or you can go to theshieldwithin.com and push that coaching button. And our web hoster was really good to email me today and say, hey, it's time to pay your shit up. So, yeah, we're going to keep the website up for a little longer. Also, like I said, Facebook, like us there. We're on all major platforms. So check us out. Like, share.
Yeah. So a trooper comes in for a shift. How long is a shift?
So the shifts are 8 hours.
8 hours. Okay. And like, what do they do? What's a trooper do for 8 hours?
So again, with the shortage, obviously we have to say, okay, this is where we need. We got 3 counties, but the interstate's always going to be a priority.
Right.
We get a majority of our calls from the interstate, obviously. So what they do is they go out, they patrol the interstate, they patrol the line, whether it's a state route or the interstate. They look for people that are broke down.
Okay.
And we get a lot of that. We get it. I mean, you see it every day.
It's amazing the freaking junk rolling up down that interstate.
So people are getting flat tires and engine problems and running out of gas. And so the troopers are there to render aid and try to get them out of there, because it's not a good place. Have you ever been stranded on the side of the interstate?
Absolutely have.
That's a good feeling when that semi blows by at 55, 60, and your car shakes, and
and your whole body vibrates for a moment or two. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
So our goal is just to get them out of there as soon as we can.
Yeah.
So while they're doing that, they're handling calls for service, obviously, with the crashes and stuff. Right. And then they're looking for those traffic violations, those crash-causing violations that we know just contributed crashes in our area. So, but yeah, they go out, and I tell you, that's actually one of the draws for me when I got into this profession. It's been 33 years, a long time.
Okay.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't look that old, do I?
No, you don't. No, you don't look a day over 25.
Gray hair, but but one of the things I really like about it is we're proactive.
Yeah.
And when I say proactive, it means, so we get into a lot of criminal investigations. We get into a lot of stuff, but it's based off a traffic stop. So then when you encounter that individual and you start asking questions and you start looking at things, you pick up on indicators that maybe something else is going on. This isn't just a typical speeder.
Right.
What that ends up leading into is some type of investigation where you get a stolen car, you get guns, murder suspects even.
Wow.
So that's always been one of those interesting things for me is, man, that's fun. Being able to take a simple traffic stop and end up getting a really cool investigation out of it.
Yeah, and a good bust, and things move forward. I had never thought of that. Yeah. How much, like, when I think about the folks I've worked with that have been troopers, it's always kind of been in between the line that, in the words that they've said, that the isolation can sometimes get to people, just being by yourself all the time. Does that seem to be something that happens? Is that hard for people or not?
I think it's probably based on the individual, but that's one of those characteristics. I think when you look at a law enforcement officer, we kind of like working on our own. I mean, you have the support when you need it.
Right.
But generally, the guys that we see, they're not the ones that want to be in a cubicle.
Exactly.
8 to 5.
Exactly.
They want to be out there. They want to be outdoors. They're self-motivated. And they don't need somebody looking over their shoulder. Right. So, yeah, it could be to some degree, but most of the guys and gals, the troopers, I think they enjoy being out there.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Now, it can be lonely. I'm not saying that on that midnight shift.
Right.
When I was a brand new trooper, there was 3 of us on nights, and a lot of nights where I was the only one out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's really where I started building those relationships with these other agencies, because that was your backup.
Mm-hmm.
You knew your life counted on them coming out to wherever I'm at, usually out in the middle of the sticks.
Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I met you.
You do?
I do. Back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. He had a car stopped on northbound 48.
Okay.
Crescent Drive. I was a Covington auxiliary. And I heard he had one out there stopped, so I rolled out and checked on him, make sure he's doing all right.
That's a pretty good memory. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning.
And I don't know why I remember that, but, then you left Piqua, and then you went south, right?
So I've had 17 different assignments over the years, been all over the state.
Wow.
But the majority of the assignments have been in the Miami Valley area, so been pretty fortunate there.
That's a long time ago.
Wow.
That is a long time ago. Yes.
Well, speaking of a long time ago, you've been at 33 years, and I heard you say when we were talking before, it's kind of been something you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, literally, when you were under the age of 10?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. So my father was a career paramedic.
Okay.
And as a little kid, I used to go to the firehouse.
Really?
Loved climbing on the apparatus, loved being there, and enjoyed it. But yeah, as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a police officer.
Wow.
And, it's funny. We talk about generations of first responders. My son's a paramedic.
Really?
Okay.
So he's smart.
Went fire versus police. Yeah.
I remember my father, a lot of the characteristics, and when I think about what really drove me into this profession, a lot was from my father and the things that I learned from him growing up.
Right.
And I remember him studying for the paramedic test because they have to recertify.
Right.
And I'm just not that smart.
Well, we talked about that when Donnie was on here. They give you 4 answers. They're all 4 right.
Yeah.
Just which one do you do first? And that's what they're looking for. And that's what I hated about when we had to do our EMR, medical first responder testing. I'm like, I had to take that thing 3 times. Good Lord. Anyway, but I agree with you on that.
And your dad, did he share much of his work with you?
So he did the good things. I always knew when he had a good working fire. He'd come home from a structure fire and was all pumped up and just enjoyed it, or just a really good life saving. Similar to us.
Yes.
Yeah. There are those cases that you deal with that are mundane, or they wear you down. You just get tired of dealing with the same stuff over and over.
Oh yeah.
And then you have something come along where you really feel like you've made a difference.
Oh, yeah.
You've saved someone's life. Your training, your experience, everything just clicks.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when my dad would come home and he would share those, it was really neat moments.
Yeah.
But, my dad was a leader. He chose to be a union leader. He was the lodge president for many years.
Okay.
And a lot of the leadership characteristics, I guess, that I have today, I learned from him.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you develop that, you watch, you pay attention.
He modeled it.
And then he really did. He really did, yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it didn't send you away from it. It drew you into it.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, too.
Yeah, I just had to have a gun when I was dealing with the public, I guess. I don't know. We kid, everybody loves firemen. But,
Oh, yeah.
So did you, how did you get, how'd the training start for you?
So actually, when I was in high school, they had a Police Explorer program.
Yes. Yeah.
That was through the Boy Scouts of America.
Oh, cool.
And I actually tried to get in a year early.
Really?
And was told, no, you're not old enough yet. I had to wait.
Oh, wow.
But as soon as I could, I came back a year later and got to do that for several years.
Okay.
The advisor, very instrumental.
Oh, nice.
I think the world of him. And didn't actually. So there were several of us that were going through the program at that time that went on to be law enforcement.
Wow.
Oh, no kidding.
So really, really neat. Getting to ride along, getting to see what the officers do. And even, of course, they use you for cheap labor.
Right. Well, of course, yeah.
You're
stand here by this barricade telling people no.
The parking details and all that stuff. But even at that level, even being 14 and wearing that uniform and having a badge and the patch and I was proud.
Sure.
I was proud. And that really started setting the tone that this is something that I even know now even more than I did, that I wanted to pursue it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of, let me jump in there real quick. They talk about recruiting.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a generic term because I think all of us are called to service. It's like at that age you're one to do it. And I was influenced when other officers came in my dad's restaurant years ago, and it just feels like a calling. I don't know of many people that got into the job because someone said, "Hey, come be the police. It's gonna have a good time." Most people are drawn into it, and it's like, this is what I want to do. What do I need to do, or what hoops do I jump through, or what schooling do I need to do? What do I need to do that job? Right. And I know that was for me.
And so if you ask, what's the number one response for individuals going into law enforcement? What do they say? Why do they want to do it?
Because they want to drive fast.
No! Mark failed that test.
They want to help people. Yeah.
They want to help people.
I'm fucking around with you.
I know you were.
That's why we said it together.
Because it's true. And so for this podcast and for what we talk about and the lead into what we're going to do.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that's how we all start.
Yeah.
But then what happens?
Life happens.
What happens over that time, that career, where you go from, man, I just want to help people, to getting to the point where it's such a struggle just to go into work each and every day.
Exactly. And that's why we're here.
Yeah. Well, you take on that energy and you don't realize walking into that whatever situation that you're absorbing that energy, or how much it's impacting you. Yeah. Are you going to take this home with you tonight? Or are you not going to take that one home tonight?
Yep.
Meaning, those memories or those experiences,
Yeah.
And I think we're getting better today.
Oh, absolutely.
At talking to our people. It's not like it was 5-10 years ago, but I think we're doing a better job.
And isn't that interesting? Mark just said 5 to 10 years ago. Isn't that embarrassing? That
it is. It absolutely is,
and it's absolutely true. You didn't go in and talk about. I could send cops into an active shooter situation. They're running in, no problems. But if I bring them into the squad room and ask them how are they feeling today.
Fine, boss.
I think they're more afraid of that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
At least they used to be.
Yeah.
But we're getting better. And one of the things that we talk about, and I shared with you, at least 60% of my day is talking to people.
Right.
And I do that intentionally. I do that because what we talk about is when somebody's in crisis, that's not the time that you're going to try to build a relationship.
Exactly.
Right.
They're not going to come to you in crisis if they don't trust you, if you haven't done the work, if you haven't built that relationship. So having those conversations is very, very important so that at that time where they are dealing with something, they feel comfortable coming to you and opening up.
God love you, man.
Yeah.
And that's leadership.
That's exactly right.
And I've known over the years, what's the great things that I've experienced with you. You did a Christian men's group a while ago that I was proud to be a part of. I couldn't participate as much as I wanted to just because I had to work. Right. And my boss was cool with it for a while. Then one day he's like, yeah, you're not going to that anymore. Oh, okay. Okay, we got plenty of staff, but okay. But, it was, Thursday nights? something like that, or whatever.
Yeah, Thursday night.
And I just the nights that it fell on, I think, were the nights that I worked. But that was great, and I loved the reason why you did it. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I saw a need. Obviously, faith plays a part, and as we get into this even more, you know, obviously that's part of my process on how I do 33 years and counting, right, as the faith component. Yeah. But, you know, really I saw a need for first responders. That was when I really started seeing we need to be there for one another, and we need to have some conversations, and in a safe environment, a safe place that, you know, we can support one another and have some of those conversations.
What was that, 8?
So it was a men's
How long ago was that? When you started? Was that 8-10 years ago?
No, not that long ago. That was probably in 15, maybe. We started. All right. Pre-pandemic.
Once upon a time.
Yeah. And actually, the pandemic really kind of had to just go. That's kind of when it went away.
Really? Okay. Well, good.
But since then, I've been looking at maybe trying to do something a little bit different, a little more inclusive. Yeah. To where we can get more conversation and more individuals talking, because it's important. And again, that goes a long way in building those relationships among jurisdiction lines too.
Right.
Absolutely right.
And the one thing I loved about the structure of it was he took a book. Here's your chapter. Just read it over the week. We'll talk about it, and then, you know, do some sharing. And you know, it was all volunteer, correct?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the people that wanted to be there, he didn't get paid to go in to do that. So if that's people's thinking, oh, well, you got paid to do that. No, and he did it out of love for his fellow man. And there was officers there from all around the area. Yeah. You know, which I was really proud to see.
Officers and firemen. We opened it up for first responders. Yeah.
Which is really cool. Was you still doing it there at the post?
So we actually were doing it out at the FOP hall for a while.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Better yet.
Yeah, because I'd bring in food, and we'd have food and fellowship, right?
Yeah.
So
the two go together.
But yeah, we studied The Man in the Mirror as the book that we were using as a reference, but really a lot of times the conversations just went off.
Right.
And to where they needed to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Kind of like this. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Or jump down a few rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, it can go here, it can go there. You know, it's okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
But getting back to that's what leaders do. You see the need, you recognize it out there, and you take your time and your money, and you go help your fellow man. And what was really striking a chord with me, where you're talking about doing the work ahead of time, establishing those relationships ahead of time. Yes. So when that person is in crisis, you have that trust bond made already, to where they don't like, what are you trying to do? You trying to bust one off my ass, or do you really care? Mm-hmm. And having that caring side of it ahead of time is absolutely essential in establishing that relationship. So good for you, man. Yeah. Always proud of you. And I gotta say one more thing. Sit here, just go. You know, doing the "I'm Not Worthy" from Wayne's World. He was one of our keynote speakers one year for the memorial, the Miami County Law Enforcement Memorial. And daggone, I had the passage right there. "Here I am, Lord, send me." was part of your speech. And at the time, I was the honor guard coordinator. I remember standing out there, and he's reading his speech, and more, that just grabbed me by the freaking feels, man. And I got emotional over that, and I thought, and afterwards, I come up and said, "Man, damn good speech." And you're like, "Oh yeah, man, right from the heart." And it was just so powerful that, you know, I wanted to compliment you again on that. Was being part of that memorial service was great, and it was just like, you know, he put it together very, very well. It wasn't, I could tell it was heartfelt. Yeah. So, and that's again the sign of a great leader.
Right.
Well, I remember when they asked if I would do that, and we were hurting, not just locally with the memorial, but obviously just as a profession, we were hurting. And so I just wanted to offer some uplifting words. And you know, one of the messages from that is I recognize when I was 33 years ago as a young trooper, the job was different. And it seemed simpler for me.
Okay.
These young officers, it's tough. There's a lot that is expected of them. And the job is just so much more complex.
Oh yeah,
it is. It's more complex. And at the time, also, I felt like no matter what I did, I was being supported by the community. That I was doing the right thing. And I say that, an example would be in a pursuit. Mm-hmm. You know, as a young officer, pursuits were exciting, and I felt like that's what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. You know, chase the bad guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But over time, you realize there's a lot of some deadly consequences out of pursuits, and you start to really overanalyze, and you're like, oh, there's a lot of bad things that can happen, and we need to shut this down and come up with alternatives and stuff like that. But as a young officer, I didn't think about any of that. I just went out, had fun, and did the job.
Gotcha.
And I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. But now the community really looks at, and you see, and I'm not, not to get political or anything like that, because there's certainly incidences where it's absolutely justified. Mm-hmm, and then there's some where the law enforcement was okay. Mm-hmm. The facts have gotten skewed. Mm-hmm. We see it on both counts.
Right.
But there's certainly a lot of scrutiny on the profession.
Oh, yes.
And the way you do it. And there's video of everything, and everybody's analyzing it, and everybody's an expert. And
right.
So it becomes a lot more difficult to go out and just do your job without second guessing it.
Right.
The officers say use of force, a simple use of force where we didn't think anything of it as a young officer. If you resisted, you were impaired, I'm trying to get you in handcuffs. Mm-hmm. I didn't think a whole lot about it. I just did my training and put you on the ground and cuffed you up, and it was good. Mm-hmm. But now these officers, they're even hesitating. They're hesitating because they're afraid of consequences that could have some serious results.
On them as?
Being injured.
Being injured.
Yeah, that hesitation. Now.
Yeah, you got to find that balance.
Yeah. So that's it, to me, that those are some of the things that I'm afraid of with these officers is, they have to rely on that training, that experience, and know, hey, I'm doing it the right way. I am okay.
Yeah.
But that hesitation is there. And when we talk about mental health,
right,
doesn't that weigh in on it? That's just another thing that these young officers have to think about as they go out and do their job.
Right.
And it becomes hard. It really is hard.
It becomes self-defeating, as you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you have so many filters that you have to run through before you make an action, before you intervene. When snap, you probably take care of business with more efficient results. This way, complications happen because you're having to sort through all that crap in your head before you act.
Now, we understand law enforcement like any other profession. It transitions, it changes. There's, better practices, and we understand all that, obviously. But there's a mental component to some of that we would be amiss if we did not discuss and recognize it's there.
Right.
It's there.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You never know which call is going to flip that apple cart over.
No.
You may be rolling along and take 100 of that call and it never bothers you. But this one, this one's fucked me up.
What made that one special? It was number 104.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, there's no rhyme or reason why.
Right.
No.
But it's recognizing the signs when it comes in. You said something about the filters, which I thought I'm kind of keyed off that. I'm thinking, you want these guys to go out and do their job and have confidence that they're doing the right thing. And Joe said, years ago it was a lot easier. It was simpler, and it was simpler. We didn't have as many filters to put on.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I think our public had a different attitude towards law enforcement in general. And some of them's like, I know you're gonna whip my ass, but I'm gonna do this anyway. You had those guys, and then you had okay, dude, I know you caught me, okay. But now it seems more malicious towards the profession. And these officers now have more filters. They can't think, they have to just go through the process. It takes what should have been a split second now is maybe half a second, or to where, okay, I got to digest this real quick,
right,
and play the chess game really quick,
right,
to make sure I'm confident I'm doing the right thing, I'm within policy. If he does this, I can do that. That's just a lot to process within a few seconds.
Yeah.
You know,
and they're doing that, but their family's doing it as well.
Yes.
So in addition, then they're going home and their significant others are having these conversations. And so,
or you get some old hat like me, fuck that, which is why I decided to retire. I think my day was over.
It was over.
Yeah.
Well, to go back, you make your decision really early on in life. You go to become a police explorer in high school. Then you get like real training, right?
Yeah.
And what's that? What happens? Where do you go for that? Is highway patrol training different than Marc's training?
Where did you go to the academy at, Marc?
I went to Clark State.
Oh, yeah.
Say I went to a local police academy, and I'll let Joe talk about his experience and where that is. But my training was not like his training. I believe you probably stayed there.
Yeah.
For an extended period of time. I went every night for 4 hours.
Yeah.
From 5:30 to some nights 10 to 10:30.
Yeah.
For how long?
Yeah, God, forever. At that time, it was 6 months.
6
But
months.
remember, I was working a full-time job. I had 2 babies at home. Actually, 3 kids at home and a wife that was going to college at the same time. So our life was fucking chaos. And you have to want to do this job to put yourself through that.
That's right.
And I remember with my academy, I went every day the month of May. We had firearms every weekend. So we were at Logan County's range or Champaign County's range for 8 hours Saturdays and Sundays, and then right back into the class.
Wow.
Yeah. It was horrible.
And yours?
So, there's pros and cons.
Okay.
So ours is at the Highway Patrol Academy in Columbus.
Highway Patrol has its own
We
academy.
have our own academy.
Okay.
And we train outside agencies as well. That's one of the services that they provide.
Okay.
So you have trooper classes, and then you have basic police officer classes as well.
Okay.
6 months. I went through 6 months, and like Marc said, it was Monday through Friday, and then a lot of times you'd be back early Sunday morning preparing.
Right.
In a lot of ways, that was easier. And I've done some teaching on some of those academy classes, like Marc said. And what a challenge, because these individuals, I applaud them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're pursuing that dream on top of they're working, they have their family, and that can be very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Where with our training, I focus. Now, being away from home during that time period, that's difficult. But I could focus.
Yeah.
I could focus. And so, in a lot of ways, our training is the equivalent to like a military basic training.
Okay.
You get up early, you do PT, you have reveille.
Okay.
Make your bed, right? We have chores to start the day. Make sure the academy is spotless.
Okay.
Got to clean, get them boots shined up.
Go to a class and learn various topics.
Okay.
And then afternoon PT.
Yeah, more running.
More running, yeah. And then evening classes, and then, you're done. So, and then we'd have classes in the night, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
So at that time, what year did you go to the academy?
so it was in January of 90.
Okay, so you were a couple of years ahead of me. The State Patrol had their academy, Columbus Police, Cleveland, Dayton has their own police academy. I think Akron has one. I think those are the big ones. Well, obviously Cincinnati, we forgot Cincinnati has their own, but there's just limited amount of full-time academies around the state. Now, at one time, there was up to 88 police academies throughout the state of Ohio.
Wow.
And since then, they've dropped down to I think there's 64, 66 now.
Okay.
But the community, the legislature changed because before you used to have to be hired first before you go to the academy. So each individual department, so I want to be a police officer. They recruited me out of the Re-Explorer program. So you got sworn in, and then you could work a year as a cop, but you had a year to go get your certificate to get certified. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then they decided, well, we're having a hard time getting cops, and this is probably the 80s. I think they did that, late 70s, to where the legislature said that the community colleges could put on their own independent police academies. Okay. So you can train the cops first, then go find a cop job.
Right.
Which there's good and bad to that, but That's what I did. I was not, well, actually I was sponsored. Covington Police Department sponsored me to go to the academy. I paid for it. Okay. They just said, yeah, he's sponsored. So at the end of the day.
We like him.
Yeah, we like that. He begged us long enough. He finally decided to make a cop out of him. So.
He kept coming back.
Yeah,
like that stray cat. You just couldn't get rid of it.
Exactly. Feed that guy some antifreeze. Get him the hell out of here.
But for me, so again, wanting to do this my whole life, going to the academy, I loved it.
Oh, yeah. Maybe, that's the way I was, too.
Maybe I was ate up, but I just loved it. I'm finally getting all that training on all that things that it's just cool.
You just wanted to go in. What do we learn tonight? That's the way I was.
Yeah.
I mean, then I would go home and study. Mm-hmm. And you have your what's called the student performance objective, and you'd write it. And I always read mine off into a recorder, and I'd throw it into the car, and I would listen to last night's lesson on my way back because I had 20-30 minute drive. So but being immersed into it, being there every day, I think you retain a lot more of that.
Yeah,
being there all the time. So
sounds more intense.
Oh, it is. They're very paramilitary over there, aren't you?
Yeah.
I've only been. I have never witnessed. I've been through the academy. I haven't, been there when they were teaching or participated.
Right.
Yeah, but everything there's a purpose.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And at the time you don't initially understand it. and so I'll give you an example.
Sprayed with OC?
No, I got a better one.
Oh, okay, good.
So so you have your final inspection Friday before you get to go home. Of course, you want to go home.
Yeah.
And usually it's about 4:00, I guess, whatever. Well, things weren't going well. Now it could have been no different than the week before, and you were praised. But this week, all of a sudden, you guys are the worst cadet class that's ever went through, and they're holding you over, and they're going to run you through some more PT. But this one day, one of the instructors, he was yelling at our class, and he was bringing up one of the examples on why we failed so miserably.
Okay.
As they were doing their inspection, he went into one of the bathroom stalls, and the toilet paper was not torn straight.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes. 33 years, I still remember this, right? Remember earlier, I said I can't remember Brett. I remember this. Yeah. But here's the cool thing. At the time, you're like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I just want to go home. I don't understand this.
Right.
The purpose is attention to detail.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
Oh, yeah.
And how many times, Mark, in our careers, has that meant something?
Oh, absolutely. The most minutest thing.
So at the time,
you pick up on.
You don't understand. And then also, what it does, it builds team building. And you're like, well, how can that be? How can getting yelled at about toilet paper be team building?
Because somebody better pay attention to that next week.
And it's us versus them.
Yes.
It actually brings the class together against the instructors.
Common enemy.
Yeah. So it really is. It's brilliant. At the time, you don't think. In military, similar. They break you down to build you up.
Yeah.
And to instill those characteristics.
Yep.
That not only make you a good officer, but make you successful.
Yes. You get to help people.
And a lot of times we're young.
Yeah.
We're young men and women. A lot of them have not been away from home, haven't done their own laundry.
No, that's
Don't know how to cook.
Yeah, right.
Well, go ahead. Well, but one thing I love about your academy is that there's most people have never been in a fight.
Yes.
They have to go over there and box.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had people say, "Oh, fuck that! I never did." I'm like, "Motherfucker, you better remember, we're fighters with guns on our hips.
That's right.
You fight more than you ever. I've never had my gun out and throw rounds at anybody. I've had it out, but I've never shot anybody in the years I was on the road. But I've had tons of fights. And if you've never taken a punch to the face,
and that's the point. They want you in that environment to realize you can get hit and keep fighting.
That's right.
Stay in the fight.
Yeah. You can get sprayed and keep fighting. You can get this and keep going, but stay in it.
So a lot of the characteristics they're building not only builds good officers, but you're also teaching them to be young men and women.
Right. And all that helps each officer survive.
It does.
And that's the number one thing. Keep them alive.
Yeah.
Give them tools, give them resources, give them the right mental attitude to be able to go out on that street when you're by yourself and you're thinking, this motherfucker's going to fight. God damn it.
Mm-hmm. Here we go again.
It's just like, you just want to get, and there's been times I'm just like, I'm just going to go out and fucking punch him so we can get this over with. You know, because to me, you know, he's looking for when you're looking away, because he's going to want to sucker punch you. And I hate that. But so, you know, I've been pretty successful not taking a lot of blind punches throughout my career. But again, a lot of it's dialogue. Bro, you know, we can do this, but let me tell you something. Or, you know, but let them know that, you know, this is going to happen, or to have the wherewithal to reach out and say, hey, you can roll me another car, or whichever else. Because, of course, then we get into the old hats. Whoa, you big pussy, what you doing calling for another car? Well, I'm just fighting hurts. You know, but I don't think you guys, I mean, we're lone wolves out there all the time. I mean, that isn't a derogatory meaning. You know, you're out in the middle of nowhere. And you made reference earlier is that your local guys are your backup. So establish that relationship. But that's the best sound in the world, man. It really is.
Cavalry's coming.
When you hear them sirens coming, it's like,
oh yeah.
I just got to hang on. Just a few more seconds.
Right.
And then, so obviously, yes, self-defense is big.
Yeah.
Mark's involved in the driving component. Because that's another thing that we do and is more liable.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of liability involved in the driving that we do. So we have to train them to really push it, to know what that vehicle can do, what they can do. You know, what's their limitations, what's that car's limitations. Great week. I loved it. We've been out when we got the Chargers. One of the things they were concerned about, there was a significant power difference between the old Crown Vics.
God love them.
Even though they're very comfortable and I loved them, but a big difference. And they were afraid of these young officers going out, and this is, you know, a powerful cruiser. So we got to go out to Mid-Ohio and drive through the courses and just learn the cars and learn what your capabilities are.
Great course, by the way.
It was
fantastic.
Great. Yeah, it's great. So a lot of time spent getting those guys and gals trained up on that. Because we also, and I had done a media interview one time, and they're out, and it was driving week. And they were looking and asking about it. And I said, well, we're asking these young officers, and they're coming out of the academy, so you know they're going to be on midnights or afternoons. Right. I'm saying we're asking these young officers to go and patrol those areas that have high crashes and high impairment. So the very least we can do is give them the skills necessary to survive.
Yes, exactly.
So
we'd like to show up for work tomorrow.
We do. Yeah, we want them to be safe. We want them to go out and do a good job, and then go home.
Go home and breathe well.
Yeah.
As I'm thinking, like, as you're going through this, you're going there basically 7 days a week, but you're going home on the weekends a bit. Were you living at home then? Were you married? How was that working for you with your life at that point?
Yeah, my life at that time, I was married and young kids.
Young kids, wow.
Yeah. And of course you had homework. And that was pre-computers. We didn't have laptops. So all my notes, well, I hand wrote. I learned how to block print really well.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you didn't have to type it.
Yeah, but all your notes had to be handwritten out. And you had homework, you know, obviously. There's a lot to study when you're talking about the traffic law and criminal law and all the different things. A lot of material being thrown at you. And so you didn't get a whole lot of time for family. And so that family support is huge. That you have that support and you have people that are around you and know that, hey, this is going to pay off. Now at that time, it was like $6.57 an hour, I think. It wasn't very much an hour. But once you graduate, obviously the benefits and then significant pay bump at that time. So the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will.
Did your wife have trouble with the fact that you were going to be a patrolman? A trooper?
No, because again, it's what I always wanted to do.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. She accepted that's just who you are.
And I was pretty fortunate. It was one of those.
You were together before you became a cop.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
She knew walking in.
Yeah.
Okay. in the training, any mental health stuff for y'all?
Not in them days. There wasn't any for us.
No, Dave, like Mark said, okay, 33 years. Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Yeah, is when we started.
Obviously it's been around, but and I'm ashamed. I've come a long way, and for me, the journey really around 2019, and then it just progressed, and a lot of things happened.
Okay.
That really just pushed that, man, this is such a huge thing. We need to do better. I need to do better.
Gotcha.
I can do better.
Yeah.
And so you go through the training and you start teaching, and as you teach,
yes,
you learn. Also learn. Yeah, sure. You learn more than you teach, I think, sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And so that became a huge component. And then through that, you then become better on scenes. Like there were some things, and we'll get into it a little bit later, I think. But realizing, man, I'm not doing a very good job of caring for others at scenes.
Oh.
Something that was really came to light from a tragic crash that we had from an employee. And I'll talk a little more detail about that because it was important, because from that, I said, okay, we need to consider others. For me, I'm a trained professional. I've been on the scene of, I can't even tell you how many fatal crashes. But for an individual, a citizen, or tow truck operators, obviously they have more exposure. But it just got me thinking. All those years, never thought about it. Never thought about their exposure. Never thought about their experiences, other than, and Mark will relate, hey, here's an OH3 statement.
Yeah, here, fill this out.
You saw this crash. I need what'd you see? What can you tell me? Okay, great. I'm going to stop traffic. Be on your way. Thank you for staying.
That was it.
And
later, Tater.
Not until not too long ago, I started realizing they just saw something pretty traumatic.
Yeah, they saw the shit before we got there.
Yes.
That's what I didn't put into context. Sometimes they watch the lights go out.
Yeah.
That's, if you've never experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always been pretty empathetic, but really, I just never thought of that.
Yeah.
And isn't that horrible that it's taken this long?
Not really, because we were never trained to think with empathy. We were never trained to work with empathy in those days.
Yeah.
Now I think it's a different ball of wax, and I think leadership now is recognizing that, it's you kind of develop it after a period of time, and it's kind of like there's been many times where I'm just standing there and hug them.
Oh, absolutely.
Just hold them. They're just boo-hoo. But they have no idea who I am. I just give them that. They collect themselves, and man, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
And maybe part of it is, as a young officer, you're so focused on the task at hand.
Because you get to go use your skills you just learned.
Woohoo! But you're kind of scared. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, if you think about a major crash out on the interstate, you got the traffic shutdown, which is major. And you got all this stuff and cars and
pressure to get it done quick, and
you got to collect evidence, but you got to get the road open as soon as possible, and you got to get statements, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I don't have 5 minutes staying here and hug this woman that's crying that just saw this person die.
So you focus, you focus on the task.
Here, EMT, deal with this bitch. Sorry for that word. I didn't mean it that way, but here, push her off, pass her off. But we lost that human factor somewhere in the road there. We lost the human factor, and that is a good angle that you brought that up, because you don't appreciate they are all going through it, right down to the tow truck driver. Yeah. When you said that, I was like, bing, I never really thought about that before. And
how many times have you asked a tow truck driver?
I've never.
You
never
okay?
asked
You
them.
okay, dude? That was kind of screwed up.
Yeah, I never had.
Your road workers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In the construction zone.
For me, the example that I use is with ODOT and an employee that was, involved, and I just never thought about it.
Yeah.
And so we can do better.
Great aspects.
Yeah. Awesome.
Facets of the diamond, I like to say.
Yes. Exactly.
Just different, and especially in a position of management, just being a supervisor of my crew, That's all I have to worry about, like with your sergeants. But you, as a post commander, has to worry about all of those crews that work for you and the dispatch center and everything else. So it really, you really take on broad shoulders when you do that, and you have to be very well organized to find that balance, and then have to remember, and then that's where you're going. You still have to remember, I'm a human too.
Right.
Who takes care of this guy?
Right.
Because everyone looks to you. You're the hand on the rudder during the storm, but who takes care of Joe?
And so that's one of the things that I did. So when we talk about getting better with the profession, we do have peer support. We call it the MAT team, Members Assistance Team. But for a long time, it was really just the troopers, dispatchers. There wasn't any gold, as we like to say.
Okay.
So I signed up for that so that I could be certified as a peer support, recognizing, just like Mark said, who's looking out for the boss. Because they're taking on a lot.
Absolutely.
They are. And when I'm at home at night, I worry about my people. I worry about them. Little things.
Oh, yeah.
Little things. But when you're on the scene of a crisis and you're trying to manage it and all that other stuff, and now all of a sudden, okay, I need to vent. Who do I vent to?
Exactly.
You're not supposed to really complain or vent down.
Right. It's like that famous scene from Saving Private Ryan. Well, Sergeant, I don't gripe to you.
And it's not a good look to see your leader. It doesn't bring confidence when your leader's having a meltdown on.
That's right.
So,
but you hold your shit together.
Yeah.
And then
go find that.
Then you have that peer support, somebody that you can talk to that is a peer relative.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I did that, was for the command staff, recognizing that, they're going through it too.
Right.
And that became pretty important here not too long ago with the big shooting that we had down in Cincinnati. That's one of those where huge scene, a lot of officers involved, and the command staff. When you talk about a command staff of a district level, captain, staff lieutenants, I told you earlier, I'm on the road a lot.
Yeah.
Handling calls, and that's to me, it's important that when my guys are out there, if they're out in it, I'm out there with them. But what that does is it puts me out there with them.
Right, exactly.
And that builds confidence.
It does. In that case, so you got district staff, usually they're rolling up after things have occurred. They were right in it. There were actually rounds still being fired.
Oh, goodness.
So that became pretty important. I'm glad that I was able to go down there and support them, talk to them. And there had been some relationships built prior. Several years back, right?
Exactly.
Some coffee talk, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
That enabled some of that to happen. So
very cool.
Yeah,
that's way cool. Awesome.
Because you are the OG.
I really am. Yeah. So
really
so we just had 2 retire. So the colonel retired, the light colonel retired. They were out of my class.
Yeah.
So of my class.
Wasn't he a sergeant in Dayton Post?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I
think that's the first time I met him
at Springfield as a sergeant, Trooper Dayton. But so there's 5 of us left out of my class.
Wow.
And we're the oldest. So I don't know how that happened.
Great, yeah. Well, but you don't think about it at the time when you're going through the academy. And I think it's me and there's a Clark County sergeant. They were the only 2 that really lasted out of that class.
Yeah.
And I saw him at Yates's funeral, and he was like, "Hey, old dog," and I said, "It's good to see you, bro." But at the time when you're going through, you don't realize that, he's gonna be the big dog someday. You don't realize that, but then you realize that the class has that energy, so everyone that's there is going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure. I don't know if you're aware, I'm an adjunct down at St. Clair.
Yes.
I teach down there at the academy, and some classes you look at, thinking, dude, you ain't never getting a job. But then there's always that one class that it's full of rock stars. Yeah. And our current class that we got right now is that class, all rock stars. Everyone, half of them is already sworn, and so their agencies are like, let's go, let's get these guys out on the road. But the ones that aren't, they're all just super people.
Wow,
so
cool.
It's a good thing.
Wow, cool.
But it's amazing that like with your class, there's the great people that came out of there.
Yeah, we had some good ones. And we had a high retention rate, too. So we started 73 and graduated 66, which
that's awesome.
Is unheard of.
90%.
Awesome. Yeah, so that was pretty high for an academy class. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Where was your first assignment?
Piqua.
Or Pewa. There's no IQ up there.
That was. I did not say that. That was Mark.
I'm kidding. That was OMTC. We love Piqua. I used to live in Piqua, so I think I can say that.
I lived there for a number of years.
So that was actually my first assignment out of the academy. So when I had the opportunity to come back and kind of end my career, if you will, it just seemed fitting.
Wow. Yeah. How long did you stay there, first assignment?
So I was there for 3 years.
3 years,
and then at that time, we had a team that was dedicated to interdiction of narcotics. It was called the Traffic Drug Interdiction Team.
Okay.
It was 2 troopers and then another trooper that had a canine. So we were a 3-man unit. And so I went on that team for 5 years and had some really, really cool experiences.
Were you at a different post?
So, they were assigned. We worked Interstate 70.
Oh, okay.
So I was assigned at the Dayton post, and then it's not there anymore, but the old Eaton post was assigned out there for several years. And
very cool.
Do that. Yeah.
Wow.
That's fun.
And at that point, you're married, you got kids, you're parenting.
Sure. Yeah. Parenting, kids are growing up. And that's one of those cool things, and my kids still talk about it. They knew when I had a good day. And a good day was somebody going to jail and nobody got killed on my interstate.
That is a good day.
And they knew that. But they also they knew when I had a bad day. And, that's one of the things we get that opportunity to drive home a car because we're subject to call out and stuff. So they had a cruiser in their driveway. And so they got to pull, they'd be out there waiting on me as I pull in the driveway.
Wow.
What a neat experience. But my oldest daughter talks about that. And obviously we talk about, you don't share too much.
Right.
But just enough. They knew just enough and how much it did impact me that they carried that and they've become responsible. And I think some of the decisions they make now as adults go back to when they had those experiences with me, and they recognize there's some serious consequences to things that people do out there on the roadways.
Yeah, so, absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so you were able to share some. But they could tell, even if you hadn't said a word.
Yeah.
They knew when Dad had a bad day. What did they pick up on?
Well, most times, what affects me the most is those fatal crashes where, somebody loses their life that it's just tragic, that it shouldn't have happened.
Right.
Families, kids, young people affected me. Not that they're not tragic, but the one vehicle where somebody's impaired, make their own choices, hit a tree. It's sad.
Right.
But those didn't affect me as much as the ones where you have the innocent people that are traveling for holidays or just going down the road. Or I had a young man, it was right before Christmas. It was Christmas Eve.
Oh, goodness.
Left a friend's house, was on his way to the mall. And like Mark said, taking that moment to hug. It was a bitter, bitter, cold day. And unfortunately, the friend heard the crash, called the family. The entire family came out to the scene.
Oh, goodness.
And Mom and I were in a clutch, and she collapsed in my arms. And that experience, it was, I don't know that there's any way I can adequately explain or describe the energy, the feeling. I can tell you that a friend of mine worked at a department. And he was battle tested in the military, crash recon, SWAT. He was on that scene with me. Think about what he's done. Okay. That was so powerful that he ended up leaving crash recon, that he did not want to have to deal with another fatal crash. It affected him that much.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's that.
When you go home, it's still on your face.
Absolutely.
It's that, they see it and they recognize it. And obviously you don't tell them the gory details, but they know and they can see. So.
Right. And they knew enough about what hit you the hardest to know.
Sure.
You went through one of those really hard ones today.
Sure.
They didn't ask questions.
No.
They basically did what you all do for the folks at the scene. They gave you a hug.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing, and what people forget. We're human as well.
Exactly.
And so even though we try to shut off everything that's going on at home, personal life, put on the uniform, go to work, it doesn't always work, does it?
No.
And the vice versa.
Right.
And so you bring all those things to the table, and that's what makes this a challenging but rewarding profession.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The rewards, I think, far outrank the negatives.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking at it in the rearview mirror, you remember the good times are just that much more special. But it's the sad thing about it. I wish someone would say, "Hey, man, you may want to write this down, or you need to appreciate this a little more. So sit there and have another cup of coffee, or enjoy this presence a little more, because there's going to come that day." But I think over my career we did some good. They're very proud to be able to work with you during the days, work with your crews during the days. Once you find that camaraderie, to be able to, all those agencies be able to work together, and it's just like a really a big brotherhood. It's wonderful, because I network with some agencies around the state there. They don't have that. And it's like, man, it sucks to be you, because it was fucking awesome back where I worked at. We had a good time.
Yeah.
And then be able to help one another and support one another the way we do here.
Right. Mm-hmm. How are we doing with time?
Yeah, we'll do another 5 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Then it'll be break time. I'm sure everybody's probably ready to hit the head. We are a bunch of old men, after all.
No, that's only at night.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The hardest. So, you walk into the Piqua Post the first day in the job.
Yes.
How many people did you know?
Nobody.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Wow. So, what kind of culture, what kind of environment did you walk into? Were you?
Oh, that's good.
Or were you?
Oh, no, there was no shunning at all. So there was 3 of us. Actually, I take that back. So there was 3 of us that were assigned out of the academy. So I did have 2 other cadets that graduated. So, yeah. But no, they were very welcoming, and you tend to see that because they want the help. Right now I would open arms, come to my house, have dinner. It was great. And what they do is, so once you graduate, then you're put with a field training officer. You've been a field training officer, right? Yeah.
No, I have not been, but
really.
Part of the training,
Yeah. So you're with that individual for 60 days is what ours is. And that's taking everything you learned in the academy, right? And now, this is how we apply it in the real world.
Okay.
And that relationship is very, very important. They really help that foundation, building that through the rest of your career. You become very close. That's really the only person, your coach helps guide you through everything.
Right.
And so your paperwork and everything goes through them first before it goes to a supervisor. So they're your point of contact, if you will.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, but a funny story. So my coach set me up on my first day.
On your first day?
On my first day. So the first thing you do is you meet your district captain. And that's a little intimidating. You're going in.
Oh, yeah.
And he had me doing something, I don't know. But anyway, I was a little bit late for that meeting. Now, the captain didn't care. It was fine. There was no issue, right? But as we finished that meeting, so we're done, and my coach comes to me and says, "Hey, you're new to the post. The media would like to do an interview." I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what's one person in this area that everybody knows?" Yeah,
big number 7.
Steve.
Yeah,
Steve was out back waiting on me. Had his big camera on. Got right up in my face. Got the mic up.
The nostril shot he likes
getting. And
ask you stupid questions questions. You
well,
go,
and the first question to this brand new is, I understand you were late for your first meeting. It was a setup. He wasn't filming. My coach is over there laughing. Yeah, that was my very first day I was getting my PIO experience.
That's well played.
It was. It was a good joke. Yeah, to this day, Steve gets a good
yeah. What a good dude.
That coach becomes your mentor.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And isn't there to hover.
No.
Is there to give you room to do your thing?
Eventually. A lot more hovering in the beginning.
Okay.
And then as you progress, there's stages. And as you test and you show that you can do certain things, they tend to back off. And then by the end, they try not even to talk.
Wow.
They basically tell you, I'm not here.
Yeah.
You just go do your thing.
Yeah.
And they just walk. Now, obviously, if you're in danger, obviously they'll step up. But yeah, but that experience really helps you. And for me, after those 60 days, that first day, I was still a little nervous. You get that real grinder of a traffic crash like we talked about, where there's a lot going on. You want to do a good job.
Right.
And there's a lot going on, and maybe you don't have as much confidence that eventually you start to build over years. But I was ready. I was ready to go out and do traffic stops. I was ready to be on my own and start getting into things. And for me, my coach, he was an old school, a lot of traffic, wasn't big into the criminal interdiction element of it.
Okay.
And I was. That's what I wanted to do. So right off the bat, like my first day, we were having an airspeed zone, and I see a vehicle, and I start asking questions.
With the plane up, right?
It was a plane up.
Yeah,
and when the plane's up, you're just supposed to be writing tickets, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But I started seeing some indicators. And I called the plane off, and I was going to start looking in this car and search this car. and that was my first day. So your coach sets that foundation, but you can be your own person. And that's really the cool thing about the patrol is there's so many different avenues, different ways that you can go and do your thing. Yeah.
Does everybody end up becoming a field training officer, or is that kind of a special thing?
No, you got to have the right personality for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to have lots of patience. You have to want to do it.
Yeah.
There's some guys that are great cops. I mean, they're fucking fantastic, but they couldn't tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're good at doing. They're not good at conveying that to the next person.
Right.
Or they're such control freaks, they don't let the recruit do the job. Or... And I'm, and it's not negative, but they're very good at what they do. But a field training officer's like, okay, here's how you do it. Now give it a try.
Yeah.
And you fuck it up. Okay, well, we'll fix that. But,
you're a teacher.
Correct. And a couple of our really, really good ones, those people, you build that relationship to this day. Because I can remember some of my FDOs. I had some really good ones. I had some not so good ones. But the really good ones, you still call them. Even it's like, hey man, I got this the other. What do you think about this? And be 5-6 years down the road after you're already an established officer, and you still build that rapport.
Wow.
But they're really good at letting you do it. And it's like what Joe said. At the end of the process, they're just shadowing. You should have it by now, and that's how they know they've done their job well. Coolest thing I ever saw in my life when Sheriff Streck got sworn in. The whole command staff, all the captains, deputy chief, blah, blah, blah. There was a sergeant in the room that trained every one of them. That was fucking cool. They had him stay. He had just retired. They had him stand up in the back of the room and said, "Thank you, for all the bullshit you put us through." And they started telling stories on him, and he was humbled about it. And there's some laughter and some tears out of that. But that one sergeant, all those guys became successful because of him, that one FTO. And I was very blessed to be able to stand there and witness that. I thought, no, that's fucking cool. To be that FTO that, will be like your FTO. I mean, look at that.
Absolutely.
That guy cranked out, an awesome person.
And we use those field training officers. That can be one of the steps in the process for promotion.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Because you figure, first of all, you're able to supervise yourself.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then
very
the
good.
next step is obviously supervise one.
Right.
Then you're ready to be a sergeant.
Yeah.
You can supervise a squad and then move on. So
Right.
that's one of the processes for promotion, is that you're able to actually mentor an individual.
Did you miss him when he was gone?
No.
You were ready.
I was ready. Yeah. And being in a car with 60 days, again, you talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
We're built, we want to be by ourselves. Now, I want help when I need it, but I want to go do my thing.
Right.
And so, I was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Time for Donnie to key the music.
Sounds real good. All righty. May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do, as you embrace the risk you must go through, may you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.